Hey everybody, it's Odd Dustin. We got some interesting news today about PlayStation Backwards Compatibility, specifically for PlayStation 2 games. Now, it's not on the PS5 like you would think, and they haven't announced anything that old PlayStation 2 or 1 games are going to be coming, let alone PlayStation 3 games coming to PS5. But some developers have been able to figure out how to make the Xbox Series S and X play with an emulator and play PS2 games actually pretty well. There's a few videos, I'll link them in the description below if you want to watch, where people have been running things like Silent Hill 2 and some other games, and what they do is basically they pay for the ability to be a developer. So you pay a fee to Microsoft to be a developer, and you can download these dev mode apps, and they can go into developer mode, which runs like a Windows mode on the Xbox, and then you download RetroArch, which is able to emulate a bunch of different consoles, and they use one of the emulators, the PC SX2, which plays PS2 games. And I don't know if I've had some experience on PC in doing emulators. They don't run the greatest. Not all games are going to run 100% of the time, but they've had some pretty good experience with some games. And it got me thinking about, well, why doesn't PlayStation 5 start working on backwards compatibility for real? Like, the Xbox has original Xbox games, 360. Basically, all the Xbox games are available to play as long as they're going to work. So that's probably a lot of what Sony doesn't want to tell you, is there's a lot of cost involved with emulating games. So I found an article, which I will also link in the description below, that it details some of the history of why and where the compatibility for PlayStation console games are. So like with the PS1, it got upgraded, and the PS2 was natively compatible. And you can see here it had the ability to plug in controllers with a similar plug, and the memory cards were transferable from your PS1 into your PS2. The PS2 was more powerful, so it can play its games and do more than the PS1 could, but you could also throw the PS1 discs in here. Now, the architecture hardware-wise was similar, so if you know anything about the PS3 or you don't, the PS3 had a very complex CPU that was hard to develop for, and originally, the very first PS3s that came out had a chip that was basically a PS2 chip that they just inserted into the PS3 box to make it play PS2 games directly off of that PS3 console. But the PS3 console, because of that CPU and what a bitch it was really expensive. Like, they were selling each one at a loss. So they said, we got to cut something. What are we going to cut? And they decided to cut the PS2 chip. So the second round of PS3s didn't have PS2 compatibility anymore. So if you are lucky enough to have one of the original PS3 boxes, which I was never able to get, then hold on to that thing and pray that it doesn't ever break. So when you go from PS3 to PS4, the biggest problem there is that the PS3 was a pain in the ass. So they were like, yeah, you know what? We're going to put all that crap in the cloud. And they bought a cloud service. Cloud service was called Gaikai, I think is how you pronounce it, Giki, and that became the PlayStation Now subscription service, and that released for $20. You could play PS3, PS2, and PS1 games off of your PS4, but it was all cloud streaming, and this is the early days of cloud streaming. We weren't doing that yet. It was cutting edge, and it sucked. If anybody played on there was frequent disconnects, a lot of lag. The games did not run the greatest. It eventually got quite a bit better, and they cut the price. So $20 a month for something that isn't going to run great and is niche for the people that would play these kinds of old games instead of the new PS4 games. So it's a hot topic to have backwards compatibility, but when you look at the numbers, you can't just throw the emulators up and hope for the best. They have to run well. So PlayStation doesn't want to have a whole bunch of games that don't run well on their systems. They want everything to run well. That's why Xbox, you see their backwards compatibility go from only a certain list of games that can be backwards compatible, not everything, because they have to have worked it, tested it, played through the game, make sure that it runs well, that you're not going to have a bunch of issues and junk. You can't just insert your disc and then go, oh man, this does not work. So they're not going to put money towards that because they wanted you to buy their cloud service. They also wanted you to buy these remasters that PlayStation started making, and a lot of people bought those. I, for one, I bought the God of War 3 remaster and played it on the PS4. I had a thing I was doing on my streaming channel, PS Tuesdays, and I was playing a bunch of PS2 games and got to God of War 3, and I played the remaster on the PS4, and it ran great. But I also paid for it. So if I had the disc, I could have inserted it for free and they wouldn't have got any money. So when it comes down to PlayStation and their backwards compatibility, I think they had to have something, and what they gave you on the PS5 is, yeah, you can play all the PS4 games, which is easy for them to do because the PS4 moved to a more normal x86 structure, where the PS5 has that same structure, so it's easy for them to emulate a PS4 experience for you and play those PS4 games. It's quite a bit easier than taking something like the PS3 that had the goofy CPU, trying to figure out a way to emulate those games without a remaster or without streaming it off of a web service like PlayStation Now. So as far as like in the future, if you want to play PS2 games on a console and you don't want to have a computer that does an emulator, well, there's some options here. Now, as the legality goes, I don't know how legal it is to play these emulators. I believe it is if you own a PS2, you can run an emulator, and if you own that game, you can run the ROM or something like that. You're gonna have to look it up. But also, if you've got the dev kit and you've downloaded this software, this is all stuff that is allowed to run on your Xbox. So I don't think it voids the warranty either. But all that stuff, really, I'm not suggesting you go and hack open your brand new $500 console and try to run a PS2 game on it. But it's possible. People are doing it. It's pretty damn interesting to see that they're doing it. What would you do? Let me know in the comments below. Would you want to do something like this to your Xbox? If you had a quick little option to run using your Xbox controller to, run a ROM and install a PS2 game, what game would you play? Would you get on PS2 and go, let's see, I'm going to play, whatever, I don't know, a God of War 1. Yeah, that's a good game. That's a pretty good ass game. What do you want to play? Maybe Madden 1 and see a bunch of players that are all retired play football in a really crappy system. Who knows? But let me know in the comments below what you would do if you had an emulator, if you would even want to have an emulator. Have you used an emulator on a PC before? How'd that go? Any of that stuff. If you want to talk, let's talk down in the comments. Thanks everybody for watching. I'm Odd Dustin. Like this video if you could, and subscribe for more content like this. Take it easy.